Throughout his journey, Ash has caught a total of 105 Pokemon, and in every generation, they've proven time and time again why they're a formidable group, helping Ash win gym battles, island challenges, and especially Pokemon Leagues. Now, with Ash being World Champion, I had a thought. Logically speaking, Ash's Journeys team is his strongest, right? In all honesty, probably, but this video isn't really about them. Rather, his ace Pokemon. Throughout every region, one of Ash's Pokemon is stood above the rest on his team, often seen as his strongest and the one that receives the most character development. If we take away objective power scaling and look at it from a more biased perspective, the common consensus is that these guys are Ash's best. But out of all of them, who is the strongest? Which of Ash's aces is the best Pokemon of Ash Ketchum? Well, today, I'm here to look at that from an objective lens, only using what the show gives us to draw my conclusions. Also, I'm not using the Pokemon movies because they're not canon, so ignore everything that happens in those. Before I can go into detail about each ace, I first have to establish a power scaling system so I can rank each of them. Pokemon's power scaling is weird. Individual feats of strength seemingly mean nothing, as any Pokemon can beat even the toughest of foes. Like, if your level 100 Charizard can create a crater in the ground, a feat that in other animes would be huge, it means nothing when this Pikachu can come along and beat your ass. Pokemon doesn't work like other anime, so instead of looking at the speed and strength of each Pokemon, I'm gonna look more at their accomplishments, specifically the strength level of the Pokemon they've defeated or have either assisted or come close to have beaten. So the power scaling is more of a ranking system, kind of like the Pokemon World Coronation series. You're gonna have Wild Pokemon rank, Trainer rank, Gym Leader rank, League rank, Elite Four/Frontier Brain rank, and finally, Champion rank. Pretty simple, right? With that being said, let's start off with the OG himself, Charizard. Now, this Pokemon is 100% one of my favorites. It's been with Ash the longest out of all the Mons on this list, besides Pikachu, and has certainly proven his worth. Now, beforehand, Charizard's feats were kinda messy, cause during Kanto, he really didn't listen most of the time, with his biggest feat being him beating Blaine's Magmar. But when we get into the League, he does basically nothing, so it's kinda hard to gauge his strength in Kanto, but when we look at the Orange Islands and onwards, it becomes a lot more apparent. He was able to take out several gym leader Pokemon, like Faulkner's Pidgeot and Claire's Dragonair. On top of that, he took down Gary's Blastoise, and his biggest feat is of course beating Nolan's Articuno. Oh, and I guess he did a number on Iris's Dragonite, but that fight was called off before it could end. If we were to take all this into account, Charizard probably stacks up to Frontier Brain/Elite Four level. Yes, he took down an Articuno, but Charizard has never shown feats that place him above a champion level Pokemon. We have never seen him fight a champion, so it's not good to make assumptions. With that said, let's move on to ace number 2, Sceptile. This guy is busted, and while he's known for taking down Tobias' Darkrai, that's not all. He has also been able to take on May's Blaziken, drawing with it even with a type disadvantage. It has also beaten 2 Pokemon from the Battle Frontier, which is an impressive feat in and of itself. But let's go back to the big one, beating Darkrai. Now, there's evidence for both sides of the argument. Remember, Sceptile managed to escape from Darkrai's Nightmare World and defeat it. That's insane, but on one hand, this was a team effort. It wasn't really a 1v1, so in that case, I kinda have to subtract some points.
I am having a very bad day! I am in no mood!
While I think Ash's Sceptile is incredibly powerful, it really only ranks up to Elite Four Frontier Brain level. Moving on to ace number 3, Infernape. Now, this guy is a little harder to gauge, just because sometimes I feel like Infernape's opponents don't really match its strength, which is mainly due to its Blaze ability. Infernape's biggest win till this day is still Paul's Electivire. At this point in the story, Ash and Paul had pretty much traveled about the same amount, and were about equal in skill level. I'd argue both were about Elite Four level here, and Infernape was barely able to take out Electivire thanks to Blaze. It's this one advantage which I think makes Infernape an enigma. On one hand, Infernape hasn't won against anyone stronger than Paul, but we just haven't seen it, as I do think Blaze would help significantly against Elite Four/Champion level Pokemon. Not to mention, it's only lost to 2 Pokemon after fully evolving, one of which being Meowth?
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the man?
Not to mention, Infernape fought Moltres for a bit. Don't know how valid that is, but it's still something to mention. So when we put this all together, I have to put Infernape objectively at League level. But I think he probably could pass as an equal to an Elite 4 level Pokemon. However, next up is a Pokemon with some less incredible feats. Ash's Unova Ace, Krookodile. This Pokemon is probably the weakest mon on this list. Don't get me wrong, it has really impressive feats, like taking out Iris's Dragonite, which would go on to become a champion level Pokemon, as well as winning Ash's battle against Fawn in the Unova League. But to be honest, I don't think it really stacks up. Yeah, Dragonite had its raw power, but it had been with Iris for barely any time at all, and it had barely trained. And while Krookodile has a versatile moveset, I just don't think it could win against an Elite 4 member or champion, maybe with a bit more training and some Z-move mastery. So for now, I'm putting it at League level. Next up is the big one, Greninja. Now Greninja has a lot going for it. The Bond phenomenon already puts it really high, and it's defeated some insane opponents, such as Sawyer's Mega Sceptile and Wolfrick's Mega Abomasnow. This Pokemon also almost defeated Diantha's Gardevoir, if not for Ash and Greninja losing control. Like, Gardevoir was actively struggling here. Finally, it was able to take on Lysander's Pokemon and put some heavy work in against the Megalith Zygarde. But the biggest thing Greninja has going for it was almost beating Charizard. I'm fully confident that without his Mega Energy, Alon wouldn't have won against Ash. He was practically on steroids. So Ash, in a fair setting, would have most likely won, especially given Greninja's type advantage. Remember, Alon is a member of the Masters 8, and combining that with almost taking out Gardevoir, and boom! You have our first solidified champion level Pokemon. Moving on to Alola, it gets a bit tricky, as Ash's Alola Ace is honestly tied between Incineroar and Lycanroc. So which one is stronger? Well, Lycanroc has an exclusive Z-move and took down Gladion's Lycanroc to win Ash, the Alola League, but it's been heavily implied multiple times that the Royal Mask is basically the champion equivalent in Alola, and so by Ash's Incineroar taking out Kukui's Incineroar as a Torracat without its true potential, I'd argue for sure Incineroar is the ace of the region. Lycanroc is still a good boy though.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
So where does he stand? Well, like I said, his biggest feat is taking down Kukui's ace, but at the same time, that's probably about the same as Elite 4 level. Kukui is a very strong trainer, but we really don't know how well he stacks up with other regional trainers. You could make the argument for a champion, as he was Ash's equal in battle, but at the same time, it's really hard to grasp, giving Alola's different battling culture, which we can't even use as a basis for Ash because he's not from Alola. Still, Incineroar has a lot of potential in its fully evolved form, so I'm ranking it as Elite 4 level plus potential, which really doesn't change anything about its rank, but I thought it was something important to note. Up next is Ash's Journey's ace, Lucario, and this guy is probably the second strongest on this list. Not only does Aura and Mega Evolution greatly increase Lucario's power, but he's also taken on several champion level Pokemon, like Rayon's Duraludon in its G-Max form with no Mega Evolution, and has even defeated Cynthia's Garchomp, a feat that should have been for Infernape, but I digress.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
Lucario is insane, nobody is going to deny that. Its feats simply due to the series it's in skyrocket above most of Ash's Pokemon, and it's the easiest one to label as champion level. But of course, Lucario has nothing on Ash's strongest Pokemon, Pikachu. Not only has this guy taken out Leon's Charizard, canonically the strongest Pokemon in the series, but also fought against and defeated Tapu Koko and Tobias's Latios. On top of that, Pikachu has a plethora of other feats, and has access to G-Max and the 10 million volt Thunderbolt. So yeah, he pretty much exists in a tier of his own, but according to my system, he is the champion level Pokemon. So how would I rank everyone? Well, Pikachu is easily first, with Greninja and Lucario close behind, simply due to their feats and hacks. Charizard, Incineroar, Infernape, and Sceptile, I'd argue, are all around the same level, with me personally thinking Charizard has a bit more of an edge considering it took down a legendary from a Frontier Brains team, and finally, you got Krookodile in dead last. I'm sorry, my man, I love you so much, please don't kill me! So yeah, that's how I decided to figure out who Ash's strongest ace is. If you enjoyed this type of video, please let me know, maybe I could turn it into a series. Either way, to enjoy more high quality Pokemon content, check out these videos on screen right now.